Hi, friends. It's Lisa Rustin. And I decided today that I wanted to kind of tell you my origin story as um, how I came up with divorce games or how my life transpired like that. Okay, so first of all, um, only my really closest friends know this, but I was married twice. And the first time was when I was 20 years old. Um, it was to a gentleman that I met while I was stationed up there. And we worked together. And of course, when you work in your early 20s, everything seems so much fun and stuff. And um, we hung out with the same people. So it just seemed, natural to get married. So we got stationed somewhere else, and we had a small ceremony, and we got married, and we decided that since I was already working towards my degree in nursing, that I would continue that, and then he would hit the books later. But things didn't work out as planned because when you are very young, you don't have enough experience to know red flags. The first red flag that I learned was his parents were alcoholics, and then I learned that he was an alcoholic. And the more he drank, the more violent he became. And over time, um, I would get thrown into walls where I would see stars. I had really long flowing hair, and sometimes it would accidentally get pulled out during our fights. I always walked on eggshells. I never knew what I was walking into, but I knew I needed to get that degree because if I didn't, then where would I be? So I endured 5 years of this treatment of being blamed for all his failures and basically being his punching bag. I never really told anyone what was going on. I just wanted to graduate. Well, I did graduate, and luckily, nothing significantly happened to where I ended up in a hospital or even a morgue. But the scariest thing was to leave in the middle of the night with just two suitcases packed to the brim of what I could take because I was literally leaving from the state of Alaska all the way back to Florida. So I ended up back in Florida, and I filed for divorce, and life was good then. I had a new career. I made new friends. I reconnected with old friends, and life was good. Um, but then I decided that I wanted a little bit more, and I wanted to get a master's, and so I decided to get a commission in the Air Force because that was one of my dreams, was to become an officer. So off again, I'm traveling, making friends, loving my job. And as anyone, has friends and you're getting a little older, you're like, oh, everyone's getting married. Everyone's having children. I should do this. So I decided I would be smarter this time, and I came up with a list. My list was that this time, the person that I wanted to get married to needed to have higher education, so that wouldn't become an argument. He needed to earn more money, again, so it wouldn't become an argument. And he needed to be at least 10 years older than me because that way it would prevent me from outgrowing him, because that's what I thought I did wrong in the first marriage. So I meet this gentleman, and I think he's the perfect fit. And we date and do all the courting and do it for a couple years. I get engaged, we get married, and a year later we have a baby boy. But then I learned that list making is not the answer. The time that I got when I had my baby, I learned that I did all the work and was functioning as a single parent while being married. Even our finances were lopsided. Yes, he made more money, but he did not contribute to the amount of bills. And so it started causing me to be in a snowball effect of becoming in debt. I would communicate with him that I didn't feel that it was fair, that I was doing all things mom, all things work, all things bills. And the resentment just started growing. After a while, we had another little baby, and now the work was twofold. We did have an au pair because we both were in the medical field and both pulling call and both working crazy weekend hours. So even then, that didn't offload anything. And yet I was still like kind of expected to pay for all things au pair. So my resentment started climbing. I became more depressed. I became angry. And I decided, okay, I need to figure a way out of this. So I decided that he needed to have a new position that would strategically put us in a warmer climate, because if I was going to file for divorce, it wasn't going to be anywhere that would make me stuck in that state where it snowed, because I absolutely hated snow after living in Alaska. So we get stationed down south, and I continue to work and take care of all things kids and house and laundry and cook and clean and everything that you can imagine. And meanwhile, I was maybe spoke to 5 minutes a day. I was totally isolated. I had no friends. I had no hobbies. And pretty much my personal life sucked. I always had a suspicion that he was having an affair on me. But how do you find out? And if you're wrong, what type of damage does that do to your marriage? One day, I came up with an idea of putting a digital device in an area where I could catch him. And sure enough, I basically got to listen to all the sordid details of him and my hired help. I was pretty ticked. By now, I was a very highly paid executive, and I had already been raising the kids, so I knew I could function as a single parent. And this time, that's it. I was getting divorced. So the next day, I call several attorneys, and I was disheartened to find all the red tape that you had to do, how I wasn't going to make enough child support, just all this fear factor. And so it made me further angry and made me more depressed. Then my oldest child was having difficulty in school, and I needed to figure that out. So I put the divorce out on the table, or put it off on the table, and said, I can't concentrate on that right now. So as I'm trying to keep peace throughout this marriage for the kids' sake, and this is what normally happens with people, you try to keep the peace, you try to keep going, you try to keep the marriage going, even though you try to go to marriage counseling, you do everything you can, you end up getting a surprise pregnancy. Yes, I do know where babies come from. It just ended up happening. Because remember, I was keeping the peace. So this time I end up having a beautiful baby girl. And all of my childhood fears came crashing back. I did not want my baby girl to grow up without their dad, like I did. My dad died when I was 4, and I remember always praying to God for a dad. I remember watching everyone else have a dad, and I just didn't want my daughter to grow up without a dad. So at the time, my husband got stationed up in the DC area because I ended up getting him a job through pulling strings. And I decided, okay, I don't want my daughter and my boys to grow up without their dad, so I decided that we needed to move up there. And so I moved a newborn and 2 young boys up to Northern Virginia in the worst winter in 21 years. So now I'm totally isolated. I'm still doing all the work, and I know no one, and it is stinking cold with lots of snow. Meanwhile, my husband at the time is partying like a rock star in the job I gave him. I'm having to start my career over, and now I am really ticked off. I decided, okay, I can't do this anymore. So I decided to walk on the deep end and get another au pair. And I know you're thinking, you are crazy for doing that. Trust me, I had a lot of talk and prayer time with God, because that took a big leap of faith for me to hire another au pair. But during the interview, I also told my au pair what happened with the last one, and that if I ever caught this future au pair ever doing anything with my, at the time, husband, that Fatal Attraction would be a PG-13 version than what I would do to her. But she was crazy enough to come work for me anyway. So she comes on over from South Africa, and we become fast friends, and things are clicking along. I get this new executive job. Things are okay. I'm still kind of unhappy. And then I see the telltale signs of another affair. So I decide, yep, I need to verify it one more time. I put another digital recording device, and I catch all the sordid details. And I decided I don't care how much I love my children. I am no longer going to live under this type of abuse of always being told everything is my fault, of always being financially locked into things that I shouldn't be locked into, and all the other things that he used to hold against me that would keep me at bay. So I decided to come up with a plan, and I made copies of all our records. I downloaded everything on our computers. I sent everything down to a friend in the South. I also enlisted the help of my au pair, and I made sure that we could move back so it didn't disrupt the children, so we waited until summer. So we moved back in the summer. I interviewed a lot of attorneys, because by now I read like 5 law books on how to get divorced, what I needed to know, and I came up with a total plan on finances and spreadsheets and templates, you name it. So after I came up with my plan and I found an attorney that I felt like I could be in control of, I filed for divorce. And it was very difficult. And what I will tell you is I had all my stuff organized in such a format that the divorce proceedings, we never went to court. We never fought over anything. And I got everything that I needed. Looking back, I never really wanted to be divorced from anyone, but my first marriage left me with no choice, because I just wasn't going to continue to be verbally, mentally, and physically abused, nor threatened with my life. And I definitely wasn't going to bring any children into that type of relationship. My second marriage, while I tried everything, marriage counseling, keeping the peace, being the best wife I could be, that wasn't working either, because he never chose me and he never chose our children. I made choices to make sure that my children were isolated from the whole incident. Don't get me wrong, they saw us fight. But I also made sure that they actually didn't know when we got divorced. It didn't come up until actually a year later, when they had to go away with their dad for the first time. And the only issues that caused for my children was that they never ever spent time with their dad when we were married on their own. So they were kind of, what is this? It took me a long time to forgive him, probably 5 years. But I learned to choose to forgive him and to not be so hateful toward him for the sake of my children. It's been 7 years, and my children are happy. They're healthy. They're thriving in school. They're all in honors classes. They win awards occasionally. Don't get me wrong, they're kids. They can be naughty. Sometimes I feel like I could kill them. But because they're cute, I don't. I have tried dating, but I choose my kids once again. I'm not going to take my time away from uh, cooking them dinner or laying in bed at night with them or helping them with their homework to try to nurture a relationship with another person that may or may not work. Maybe if the right person walked in the door without me having to try, maybe. But I'm okay with myself and I'm okay with being single right now at this moment in time because my kids mean more to me than anything. So I hope you've learned that out of both marriages, I never made irrational decisions to just pick up and leave. I made sure that I had plans. And I made sure that I also did it in a safe manner for me for financial reasons as well as physically and mental reasons. If you have further questions, please reach out to me. If you're watching this and you know someone that is either in an abusive relationship mentally, physically, or financially, email me. Sign up for the free coaching class or even go over to my Facebook Divorce Games group and let's have conversations about this because I never want anyone to be where I was, where you have to make the choice of staying in a marriage because you're afraid to get divorced, you're afraid of losing your kids, or you're afraid to be financially ruined. So I wish for you this week to have a lot of joy and peace, and no matter what situation you're going through. And I will let you know that it does get better. It doesn't get better overnight, but it eventually gets better. And that's what I hope for you. So until next week, I wish you the best. Bye.